The Great Hall of the Galactic Council had stood for 12,000 years. Its walls were made of crystal that sang when light touched them. 900 species sent their representatives here to discuss trade, war, peace, and everything in between. The hall had seen empires rise and fall. It had witnessed the birth of alliances that spanned entire galaxies. Nothing surprised it anymore. Until the day the human seat sat. Empty. Ambassador Zilveth of the Korath Dominion noticed it first. He was a tall creature with scales that shifted color based on his mood. Right now, they flickered between blue and orange confusion and concern. He turned to the Valari delegate beside him, a being made of what looked like living smoke contained in a roughly humanoid shape. "Where are the Terrans?" Zilveth asked. The Valari delegate swirled in what might have been a shrug. "Perhaps they are late. Humans are always rushing somewhere. They probably forgot." But humans never forgot council meetings. That was the strange thing about them. Despite being the youngest species in the Union, barely 300 years since their first contact, they attended everything. They asked questions constantly. They proposed ideas that the older species found amusing at best and annoying at worst. The humans were like eager children at a table of adults, always wanting to participate, always being told to wait their turn. Now their chairs were empty. High Chancellor Vormesh, a being so ancient that no one remembered what his original form looked like beneath his mechanical body, called the session to order. His voice echoed through the chamber like distant thunder. "We will proceed without the Terran delegation," he announced. "Their absence is noted." The council moved on to other business. Trade disputes, border conflicts, the usual matters that kept the galaxy running. No one thought much about the empty human seats. 3 days later, the reports started coming in. Admiral Chloe Martin stood on the bridge of her flagship, the Quiet Horizon. She was a woman in her early 50s with gray streaking her dark hair and lines around her eyes that spoke of many battles and not enough sleep. Behind her, the vast emptiness of space stretched in all directions. Ahead, the blue marble of Earth grew larger in the viewport. "Status report," she said. Lieutenant Kevin Price, her executive officer, pulled up the data on his screen. He was younger than her by 20 years, with the kind of calm efficiency that made him perfect for this job. "All civilian transports have jumped to Sol space," he reported. "Research stations Gamma 7 through Gamma 42 have been evacuated and shut down. Colony worlds are completing final withdrawals now. We're looking at full recall within 72 hours. Chloe nodded slowly. "And the reaction from the council?" "Nothing yet, ma'am. I don't think they've noticed. They will." She walked to the viewport and stared out at the stars. Somewhere out there, 900 species went about their business, confident that the universe worked a certain way. They had no idea what was coming. The withdrawal had been planned for 2 years. Secretary General Monroe had presented it to the Earth Security Council in a closed session that lasted 14 hours. The arguments had been fierce. Some called it foolish. Others called it necessary. In the end, the vote passed by a narrow margin. Humanity would leave. Not with anger. Not with declarations of war or threats of revenge. They would simply stop participating. On the colony world of New Victoria, Governor Marcus Webb oversaw the evacuation of 6 million people. Shuttles launched around the clock, carrying families and their belongings to the transport ships waiting in orbit. Children pressed their faces against windows, watching their homes shrink below them. "Governor, we have a problem," his aide said. "The Korath Merchant Guild is asking why we're canceling all pending contracts." Marcus didn't look up from his datapad. "Tell them we're restructuring our trade relationships. They want to know when service will resume. It won't." The aide hesitated. "Sir, that's 300 years of trade agreements. The Korath depend on our shipping routes for..." I know what they depend on, Marcus interrupted. His voice was tired but firm. I also know that in 300 years of trade, they've never once offered us fair terms. They take our goods at prices they set. They use our ships because theirs are too slow. And when pirates attacked our convoy last year, they told us it wasn't their jurisdiction. He finally looked up. 1,200 humans died, and the council called it an unfortunate incident. So yes, I know what they depend on. Let them figure out an alternative. Back on Earth, Dr. Nathan Cole sat in his office at the Geneva Institute and watched the news feeds. The alien networks hadn't picked up the story yet. They were too busy with their own affairs, the Nexer Medical Conference, the Valari Harvest Festival, the endless Korov political dramas. His colleague, Dr. Maria Santos, knocked on his door. You see the latest? The council session? Yeah, they didn't even mention us. Maria sat down across from him. She was a xenobiologist who had spent 20 years trying to get the Nexer to share their medical technology. 20 years of polite requests, formal applications, and diplomatic channels. 20 years of being told that humans weren't developmentally ready for advanced medicine. Part of me feels guilty, she admitted. The Nexer colonies use that compound from our worlds. If we cut them off, they'll have to synthesize it themselves, Nathan finished, which they're perfectly capable of doing. They just never bothered because we were always there to provide it. People might die. People did die. Our people. Every year, thousands of humans die from diseases the Nexer cured centuries ago. They just won't share the treatment. Nathan's voice hardened. When we begged for help during the Velos Plague, they sent us a sympathy card. A card, Maria. 14 million humans died, and they sent condolences. Maria was quiet for a long moment. So this is payback? No, this is consequences. There's a difference. The days turned into weeks. The council finally noticed that something was wrong when the shipping lanes started backing up. Human cargo vessels had always been the workhorses of galactic trade, not because anyone forced them to, but because humans were reliable. They showed up on time. They honored their contracts. They flew routes that other species found tedious or dangerous. Now those ships were gone. Ambassador Zilvas sent a formal inquiry to Earth. It went unanswered. He sent another. Still nothing. He tried direct communication with the human embassy on the council station. The embassy was empty. The staff had packed up and left 3 weeks ago. No one had thought to mention it. In the Great Hall. The Valari delegate turned to Zilvas with something that might have been worry rippling through his smoky form. Where did they go? He asked. Zilvas' scales had turned a deep, troubled purple. Home, he said. They all went home. But why? The Korath ambassador had no answer. None of them did. They had spent 200 years telling humans to be quiet, to wait their turn, to remember their place in the grand order of things. They never expected the humans to actually listen. 6 months had passed since humanity went quiet. In that time, the galaxy had begun to fall apart in ways no one expected. The Valari were the first to feel it. Their civilization ran on trade. They grew food on 100 worlds and shipped it to 1,000 more. Their grain fed billions of beings across the galaxy. But the Valari themselves never moved their own cargo. That was beneath them. They had always hired others to do the hauling. For the past 2 centuries, those others had been human. Trade Minister Selkoth stood before the Valari High Council, his smoky form flickering with distress. The numbers on his report were bad. Very bad. 40% of our shipments are delayed, he announced. Another 20% have been canceled entirely. We simply do not have enough ships. Hire other species, the council leader suggested. The Korath have vessels. The Korath are too slow. Their ships take 3 times as long to make the same journey. By the time they arrive, half the grain has spoiled. Cell costs form darkened. And they charge 4 times the price humans did. What about the Rithians? The Nexer? The Rithians only transport their own goods. The Nexer consider cargo hauling beneath their dignity. We have spent 2 months searching for alternatives. His voice dropped low. There are none. The humans were doing this work because no one else would. We never even thanked them for it. The council chamber fell silent. Outside, the first food riots had already begun on the outer colonies. Meanwhile, the Korath Dominion faced a different problem. Their industrial worlds depended on rare metals from the outer rim metals that humans had been mining and refining for generations. The Korath had always considered it simple labor, the kind of dirty work that suited the primitive Terrans. They never learned how to do it themselves. Ambassador Zilveth received daily reports from the manufacturing sectors. Production was down 30%, 50%, 70%. Factories that had run for centuries were going dark. We could send our own workers, his aide suggested. Our workers refused to go. The conditions are too harsh, they say. The radiation too dangerous. Zilva's size scales flickered an angry red. Humans worked those mines for 200 years. We told them it was their contribution to galactic society. We told them they should be grateful for the opportunity. Perhaps we should have been more grateful ourselves. Zilveth turned to look at his aide. The young Korath lowered his eyes, but his words hung in the air like smoke. Across the galaxy, the Nexer Collective faced the worst crisis of all. Their medical technology was the most advanced in known space. They could cure diseases that killed other species by the millions. They could extend life for centuries. They were proud of their achievements, and they guarded them jealously. But their greatest medicines required a compound called Vexerin. It came from a plant that grew only on 3 worlds in the galaxy. All 3 worlds belonged to humanity. High Physician Nexara stood before the collective's ruling body, her silver skin pale with stress. Our reserves will last another 4 months, she reported. After that, we will be unable to produce several critical treatments. Surely we can synthesize the compound, the first elder suggested. We never developed that capability. The humans always supplied it freely. We never saw the need. Then demand they resume shipments. Remind them of their obligations. Nexar hesitated. First Elder, we have no formal trade agreement with the humans for Vexerin. They gave it to us voluntarily, as a gesture of goodwill. We never offered anything in return. Why would we? They are humans. What could they possibly have needed from us? Medicine, Nexara said quietly. They asked us for medicine, repeatedly. We refused. The silence that followed was deafening. On Earth, Dr. Nathan Cole watched the news from the Nexa worlds with mixed feelings. Part of him felt vindicated. Another part felt sick. He had dedicated his life to healing people. And now he was watching a civilization face a medical crisis. Dr. Maria Santos found him in his office late one night, staring at the reports. The council sent another message, she said. They're calling it a humanitarian crisis. They say we have a moral obligation to help. Nathan laughed, but there was no humor in it. A moral obligation. That's interesting. Do you know what they said when we asked for help during the Velos Plague? I remember. They said they couldn't share their technology with a species that hadn't earned it. 14 million people died while they debated whether we were worthy. He turned off the display. Now they want to talk about moral obligations. What do we tell them? The same thing they told us. That we're reviewing the request through proper channels. That these things take time. That we'll get back to them eventually. Maria sat down heavily. This isn't who we are, Nathan. We don't let people suffer just because they let us suffer. Nathan interrupted. You're right. We're not like them. And that's exactly why we have to do this. He stood and walked to the window. Outside, the lights of Geneva sparkled in the darkness. We spent 200 years trying to earn their respect. We helped them without being asked. We gave freely without expecting anything in return. And what did it get us? Nothing. Less than nothing. They saw our kindness as weakness, so we become cold? No, we become equal. We stop giving everything away and start asking for fair treatment. He turned back to her. When this is over, if it works, we'll help them again. We'll share our resources and our labor and everything else we have to offer. But it will be on equal terms. Not as servants. Not as the galaxy's charity case. As partners. Maria was quiet for a long time. Finally, she nodded back on the council station. Emergency sessions were being held daily. The Valari were running out of food. The Korath factories were shutting down. The Nexer faced a medical emergency. And smaller species, ones that had relied on human goodwill in 1,000 different ways, were discovering just how much they had taken for granted. High Chancellor Vormash convened a special meeting of the Security Council. The Great Hall was full for the first time in months, every species desperate for answers. We must compel the humans to return, the Korath ambassador demanded. Send ships to their worlds. Show them we are serious. And what? The Rithian delegate asked. Threaten them? Attack them? We do not even know why they left. Does it matter why? They have obligations. What obligations? They were junior members. We gave them no responsibilities. We told them to wait and watch and learn. The Rithians' forearms spread in frustration. They are doing exactly what we asked. They are being quiet. The chamber erupted into shouting. Accusations flew. Species that had cooperated for millennia suddenly found reasons to blame each other. The Korath said the Valari should have maintained their own shipping fleet. The Valari said the Nexer should have shared their medical knowledge to avoid dependence on outside resources. The Nexer said everyone else was ungrateful for their contributions. Ambassador Zilva sat in the chaos and thought about the empty human seats. He remembered the human delegates who used to sit there earnest and eager, always proposing ideas, always being told to wait. He remembered how they would argue for fair trade terms and be laughed at, how they would offer help during crises and be grudgingly accepted, then quickly forgotten. He remembered one human ambassador in particular, a woman named Sarah who had served for 30 years. On her last day, she had given a speech to the council. Most delegates had not bothered to listen. We came to the stars looking for friends, she had said. We found teachers and neighbors and sometimes rivals. But what we wanted most was to be treated as equals, to be seen as partners, not pupils. We are not asking for special treatment. We are just asking for respect. The council had thanked her politely and moved on to other business. Now, Zilveth wondered if anyone else remembered that speech. Probably not. Humans came and went. Their lifespans were so short. Why bother remembering what they said? Maybe, he thought, they should have listened more carefully. 1 year after humanity's withdrawal, the galaxy was burning dot. It started with small conflicts. A Korath mining vessel strayed into Valari space and was fired upon. A Nexer medical ship refused to treat wounded Rithians, citing resource conservation. A dozen species that had shared trade routes for centuries suddenly found reasons to dispute borders that had been peaceful for generations without human diplomats to smooth things over. These small fires grew into large ones. The Korath and Valari were now fighting over the Tessara Nebula. For 800 years they had shared the resource-rich region without major conflict. Human mediators had helped them draft agreements, resolve disputes, and maintain the peace. Now those mediators were gone. and ancient grievances resurfaced like wounds that had never properly healed. Commander Jake Sullivan watched the battle reports from Earth's Defense Headquarters. He was a veteran of the border conflicts before the withdrawal skirmishes that the Council had always been too slow to address. His ship had responded to distress calls from human colonies under attack while Council vessels sat in their ports, waiting for jurisdictional approval. 3,000 dead, he had told his superiors at the time, and they sent us a formal apology. Now he watched alien species tear each other apart and felt nothing but cold satisfaction. "Sir, the Council is requesting military assistance," his aide reported. "They want us to help restore order in the Tessar Nebula." Jake didn't look up from his screen. "Send them our standard response, which is that we are reviewing the request through proper diplomatic channels, that we appreciate their confidence in our capabilities, that we will respond in due time." His aide hesitated. "That's what they said to us after the Velos colony attack." "I know." On New Austin, Governor Beth Harrison faced a different kind of pressure. Her colony was one of the closest human worlds to Council space, and she received daily transmissions from alien merchants begging for trade to resume. "They're offering triple the old prices," her aide, Daniel Perry, reported. "Some of them are offering even more." Beth looked at the messages scrolling across her screen. Desperate pleas from species that had never given humanity a second thought. Offers of friendship from civilizations that had blocked human proposals for centuries. "It's amazing," she said quietly. 200 years we tried to trade fairly with them. They called us greedy when we asked for better terms. They said we didn't understand how the galaxy worked. And now? Now they're discovering that we understood perfectly. We just disagreed." She deleted the messages without responding. "The Council made the rules. We're just playing by them." Meanwhile, Secretary General Lisa Monroe prepared for the most important meeting of her career. After months of silence, she had agreed to receive a delegation from the Galactic Council. Not on neutral ground. Not on a Council station. On Earth. "They're coming here?" her security chief asked. "Yes. Why?" Lisa smiled thinly. "Because we told them to. For once, they're going to come to us." The delegation arrived on a rainy morning in Geneva. 7 beings stepped off to transport representatives from the most powerful species in the galaxy. High Chancellor Vormesh himself had come, something that had never happened before. Humanity had always been expected to travel to the Council. The Council did not travel to junior members. Ambassador Zilveth walked through the streets of the human capital and felt strange. The buildings were smaller than Council architecture. The technology was simpler. Everything about this world was modest compared to the grand civilizations of the galaxy. And yet, these modest people had brought that galaxy to its knees. They seemed calm. He observed to his aide that it was true. The humans they passed went about their daily lives without apparent concern. Children played in parks. Workers headed to offices. No one panicked at the sight of alien dignitaries. No one begged them to restore order to the galaxy. They simply didn't seem to care. The meeting took place in a small conference room. No grand hall. No crystal spires. Just a plain table, some chairs, and a human woman waiting for them with a pot of coffee. High Chancellor Vormesh was not used to being greeted with coffee. "Secretary General Monroe," he said formally, "we thank you for agreeing to meet. Please, sit down." Lisa gestured to the chairs. "I apologize for the modest surroundings. Our grand diplomatic hall is being renovated." It was a lie, and everyone knew it. Earth had perfectly good diplomatic facilities. This room had been chosen deliberately. "You are not important enough for ceremony," it said. "You are guests, not dignitaries." The alien delegates sat awkwardly around the table. Some of them had never used human furniture before. They shifted and adjusted, trying to find comfortable positions. Lisa waited patiently. Finally, High Chancellor Vormesh spoke. "The galaxy is in crisis," he said. "Wars are spreading. Trade has collapsed. Medical emergencies threaten millions of lives. We need your help." "I see." Lisa poured herself a cup of coffee. "And why do you think we can help?" "Because—" Vormesh paused. He was not used to explaining himself. "Because you have resources, ships, personnel. You are capable of— We've always been capable." Lisa interrupted calmly. "That was never the question. The question was whether you wanted our help." "Of course we wanted." "No, you tolerated our help. You accepted it when it was convenient and ignored it when it wasn't. You took our ships and our workers and our resources, and in return, you gave us nothing." She set down her cup. "For 200 years, we asked for fair treatment, equal representation, basic respect. Every time, you told us to wait, to be patient, to earn our place." Ambassador Zilveth shifted uncomfortably. His scales had turned a deep blue, the color of shame. "We made mistakes," he admitted. "We see that now. Do you?" Lisa leaned forward. "Because I don't think you do. I think you see a crisis and you want us to fix it. I think once the crisis is over, you'll go right back to treating us like servants. That's what you've always done. We can change. Maybe. Maybe not. But here's what I know for certain." Lisa's voice hardened. 3 years ago, pirates attacked one of our colony worlds. We begged the Council for help. You told us it was outside your jurisdiction. By the time you finished debating, 1,200 humans were dead. The room went silent. 5 years ago, a plague swept through our outer colonies. We asked the Nexer for medical assistance. They told us we hadn't earned their technology. 14 million people died. High Physician Nexara looked away. 10 years ago, we proposed a trade agreement that would have benefited everyone. You rejected it because, and I quote, "Junior members don't set trade policy." Lisa stood. "So when you ask why we left, the answer is simple. We left because you showed us, over and over, that we didn't matter. That our lives were worth less than your convenience. That no matter what we did, we would never be treated as equals." She walked to the window and looked out at the rain. "Now you're here, asking for our help. And I want you to understand something. We're not coming back to save you. We're not coming back because you asked nicely, or because we feel guilty, or because we have obligations. If we come back at all, it will be because you've really shown us, that things will be different." High Chancellor Vormesh rose slowly. His mechanical body hummed with something that might have been emotion. "What do you want?" he asked. Lisa turned to face him. "We want what we've always wanted. Fair treatment. Equal representation. A seat at the table that actually means something." She paused. "And we want an apology. Not for the cameras or the history books. A real one, where you admit what you did wrong and promise to do better." The alien delegates exchanged glances. Some of them looked angry. Others looked thoughtful. A few looked ashamed. "We will discuss this," Vormesh said finally. "Take your time." Lisa sat back down. "We've waited 200 years. We can wait a little longer." The delegation left an hour later, more confused than when they arrived. They had come expecting to negotiate with desperate humans who needed them. Instead, they found a species that seemed perfectly content to watch the galaxy fall apart as their ship lifted off. Zilveth looked down at the modest city below. "They're not bluffing," he said quietly. Vormesh didn't answer, but his mechanical hands gripped the armrests of his chair a little tighter than before. The council debated for 3 weeks after the delegation returned from Earth. Voices rose and fell in the Great Hall. Ancient species that had ruled the Stars for millennia argued about whether they should. Apologized to a civilization that had barely mastered space travel. High Chancellor Vormesh listened to it all. We cannot bow to human demands, the Korath representative insisted. It would set a dangerous example. Every junior species would expect the same treatment. Perhaps they should, Ambassador Taylor of the Rithian Assembly replied. Her forearms were folded in frustration. Perhaps we have been wrong about more than just the humans. Wrong? We built this council. We created the laws that govern galactic civilization. Without us, without the humans, Taylor interrupted, our trade networks are collapsing. Our factories are shutting down. Our people are going hungry. She turned to face the full assembly. I have been thinking about what the human Secretary General said, about how we treated them. And I realized something. She was right. We treated them badly. Not because they deserved it, but because we could. The hall fell silent. We are old, Taylor continued. Our species have lived for thousands of years. We have seen civilizations rise and fall. And somewhere along the way, we forgot what it was like to be young, to be struggling, to be desperate for help and have none come. She lowered her arms. The humans reminded us. And we didn't like it, so we pushed them away. On Earth, the waiting continued. Admiral Chloe Martin had been transferred to the Sol Defense Command, overseeing the protection of human space. It was a quieter job than she was used to. No more long patrols through contested territory. No more responding to distress calls that the Council ignored. Just the steady work of keeping humanity safe. Any word from the Council? She asked Lieutenant Price during their morning briefing. Nothing official, but our intelligence suggests they're divided. Some factions want to negotiate. Others want to force us back somehow. Force us? Chloe raised an eyebrow. Economic pressure. Trade restrictions. Some of the Korath hardliners are even talking about military action. Chloe laughed. It was a tired sound. With what ships? Half their fleet runs on fuel we used to refine for them. They can barely keep the lights on, let alone launch an invasion. That's what our analysts say. But desperate people do desperate things. She nodded slowly. Keep monitoring the situation, and make sure our defensive positions are solid. I don't think they'll actually try anything, but let's not give them any opportunities. Meanwhile, Dr. Nathan Cole received an unexpected visitor at the Geneva Institute. A Nexer physician had traveled to Earth secretly, without official approval from the collective. Her name was Nexeth, and she looked exhausted. I need to speak with you, she said. Please. Nathan led her to his office and closed the door. I'm surprised you're here. I thought the Nexer considered Earth too primitive for medical exchanges. Nexeth flinched at the words. We were wrong. About many things. She sat down heavily, her silver skin dull with fatigue. I have been a physician for 400 years. I have healed millions of beings. And in all that time, I never questioned why we refused to help humans. It was simply policy. Policy. Nathan's voice was flat. Yes, that is not an excuse. I know that now. She looked up at him. During the Velos Plague, I was part of the medical council that rejected your request for assistance. We had the technology to save your people. We chose not to share it. 14 million people died. I know. Nexeth's voice cracked. I know, and I have spent every day since then trying to understand why we did it. The reasons we gave, that humans weren't ready, that the technology was too dangerous, that you needed to develop naturally, they were all lies. We just didn't care enough to help. Nathan was quiet for a long moment. Why are you telling me this? Because I want you to understand that not all Nexer feel this way. Because I'm ashamed of what my people did. And because... She hesitated. Because I think you deserve to hear someone say it. We were wrong. We let your people die when we could have saved them. I am sorry. I am so terribly sorry." For the first time in months, Nathan felt something other than anger. The apology didn't bring back the dead. It didn't erase the years of suffering. But it was real, and it was sincere, and that meant something. "Thank you," he said finally, "for coming here, for saying that. Will it make a difference? Honestly, I don't know. That's not up to me." He stood and walked to the window. "But I'll tell you something. When this all started, I wanted revenge. I wanted the Nexer to suffer like we suffered. I wanted you to know what it felt like to lose people you loved while others watched and did nothing." He turned back to face her. "I don't feel that way anymore. Not because the anger is gone, it's not. But because I realize something. If we become like you, cold and uncaring and convinced of our own superiority, then they win. The people who let our families die, they win. I won't give them that satisfaction." Nexeth nodded slowly. "So what happens now?" "Now, we wait. And we hope that more of your people feel the way you do. Because if they don't," he shook his head, "if they don't, I don't know what comes next." Back on the council station, the debates continued. But something had shifted. Ambassador Taylor's speech had broken something open, and now others were speaking up as well. A young Valari delegate rose to address the assembly. His name was Selthier, and he had barely lived 100 years a child by galactic standards. "I have been reviewing our history with humanity," he said. "Not the official records, but the detailed archives. The proposals they made that we rejected. The compromises they offered that we ignored. The help they gave that we never acknowledged." He pulled up a holographic display. Lists of human contributions scrolled across it. Ships they had provided during crises. Resources they had shared without compensation. Lives they had risked to protect species that looked down on them. "They gave us everything," Selther said quietly. "And we gave them nothing in return. Worse than nothing. We gave them contempt." "They are a young species," the Korath representative protested. "It is natural for young species to what? To be treated as servants? To be mocked and dismissed?" Selther's form rippled with emotion. "My grandmother told me stories about when the Valari were a young species. About how the elder civilizations helped us, taught us, treated us with respect. That is how we became great. By learning from those who came before." He turned to face the full assembly. "What did we teach the humans? That kindness is weakness. That helping others earns you nothing. That the strong do as they wish and the weak suffer in silence." His voice dropped. "Is that really the lesson we wanted to pass on?" The hall was silent. High Chancellor Vormesh rose from his seat. His ancient mechanical body moved slowly, but his voice was clear. "I have lived for 12,000 years, he said. "I have seen empires rise and fall. I have watched civilizations destroy themselves through arrogance and pride. And in all that time, I have never felt as ashamed as I do today." He walked to the center of the chamber. "The humans asked us for one thing, respect, not resources, not technology, not special treatment. Just the simple acknowledgement that they mattered as much as anyone else." He paused. "We couldn't even give them that." He turned to face the empty human seats. "I don't know if they will come back. I don't know if we deserve for them to come back. But I know this. If we want any chance of rebuilding what we broke, it starts with admitting what we did wrong." The chamber waited. "The humans were right," Vormesh said. "We were wrong. And I'm sorry." It was, for the first time in 12,000 years, the sound of the Galactic Council learning humility. The negotiations took 3 months. For the first time in galactic history, the Council came to humanity sending delegations to Earth, agreeing to human terms for discussion. Accepting human mediators for disputes. Secretary General Lisa Monroe led the talks personally. She was firm but fair, pushing back against attempts to return to the old ways while acknowledging genuine efforts at change. Beside her sat Admiral Chloe Martin, Commander Jake Sullivan, and a team of diplomats who had spent their careers being ignored by the galaxy. Now the galaxy hung on their every word. High Chancellor Vormesh proved to be surprisingly cooperative. The ancient being who had ruled the council for millennia seemed to have genuinely changed. He listened more than he spoke. He asked questions instead of making demands. When human delegates pointed out problems with proposed agreements, he worked to fix them instead of dismissing their concerns. "You're different," Lisa observed during a break in negotiations. "More than I expected." Vormesh's mechanical body hummed thoughtfully. "I have had time to think. 12,000 years, and I never truly considered whether we were doing things correctly. I simply assumed we were right because we had always done it this way." He paused. "Your people forced me to question that assumption. It was uncomfortable, but necessary. Will the others accept the new terms? Some will resist. Change is difficult for ancient species. We are set in our ways." His optical sensors focused on her. "But the alternative is worse. A galaxy without humans is colder, harsher, less than it should be. Even those who cannot admit it feel the difference." The final treaty was signed on a warm spring day in Geneva. Representatives from all 900 council species attended, many of them visiting Earth for the first time. They walked through human cities and marveled at how a species so young had built so much. They ate human food and listened to human music and began to understand what they had been missing. Admiral Chloe Martin stood beside Lisa Monroe as the signing ceremony concluded. The document granted humanity everything they had asked for and more. Full voting rights, permanent Security Council membership, equal trade access, formal acknowledgement of past wrongs, a promise to do better. Is it enough? Chloe asked quietly. Lisa watched the alien delegates mingling with human officials. Some interactions were awkward. Others seemed genuine. A Karath ambassador was laughing at something a human diplomat had said. A Nexer physician was deep in conversation with Dr. Nathan Cole, discussing possible medical exchanges. "It's a start," Lisa said. "The rest is up to them." And us. 2 weeks later, the first human ship re-entered council space. The Margaret Ann was not a warship or a diplomatic vessel. It was a simple cargo hauler, the kind of ship that had quietly kept the galaxy running for 2 centuries. Her captain was a weathered spacer named Sam Cooper, who had been flying freight routes since before the withdrawal. "Feels strange," his first mate, Lucy Tran, said as they approached the Volari station. "Being back." Sam nodded slowly. "Lot of memories in these lanes. Good ones and bad ones. Think things will really be different? I don't know." He adjusted their approach vector. "But I figure we might as well find out." The station had sent a welcoming committee. Thousands of beings gathered in the docking bay, waiting to see human faces again. When the Margaret Ann's cargo ramp lowered, a murmur ran through the crowd. Sam walked down the ramp first. He was not a diplomat or a hero or anyone important. Just a working spacer who had hauled cargo for 40 years. But the crowd looked at him like he was something special. A young Volari stepped forward. "Captain Cooper, I am Selthier. I wanted to welcome you personally. Much obliged." Sam shook the alien's hand, a human gesture that Selthier had clearly practiced. "Nice station you have here. It is better with humans in it." Selthier's form rippled with what might have been embarrassment. "I want you to know I argued for change in the council. I showed them everything your people did for us. Everything we failed to appreciate." Sam was quiet for a moment. "That so?" "Yes. I know it does not make up for the past, but I wanted you to know that some of us tried. Some of us understood. The old spacer studied the young alien for a long moment. Then he smiled a tired, weathered smile that had seen too much but still held warmth. That's good enough for me, son. That's a start. In the council chamber, the human delegation took their seats for the first time in over a year. Not in the back, where they had sat for 2 centuries. In the center ring, among the founding species. Ambassador Nicole Blake was Earth's new representative. She was younger than most council members, with dark hair and sharp eyes that missed nothing. When she spoke, her voice was calm and clear, carrying across the great hall without effort. "We are not here because you asked nicely," she said. "We are not here because we felt guilty or because we had no other choice. We are here because we chose to come back. We will keep choosing every day based on how we are treated. That is the new arrangement." The chamber was silent. "For 200 years, we tried to earn your respect through service. We hauled your cargo and mined your resources, and fought your battles and died in your wars. We thought if we just worked hard enough, you would eventually see us as equals." She paused. "We were wrong. You cannot earn respect from people who have already decided you don't deserve it." She looked around the chamber, meeting the eyes of delegates from species that had dismissed humanity for generations. "So we stopped trying to earn it. We stopped performing. We stopped being the eager young species desperate for approval. And you know what happened? You realized you needed us. Not because we were useful, but because we were gone." Her voice softened. "You realized we have been partners all along. You just never treated us like it." High Chancellor Vormesh rose from his seat. "Ambassador Blake speaks the truth. We were blind to what humanity contributed. We took you for granted and told ourselves we were doing you a favor." He bowed his ancient mechanical body, something he had never done before for any species. "We were wrong. And on behalf of the Galactic Council, I am sorry." Nicole accepted the apology with a simple nod. "Thank you, Chancellor. Now let's get to work. We have a galaxy to rebuild." The session lasted for hours, tackling issues that had been ignored for too long. Trade agreements were renegotiated. Medical sharing programs were established. A new system for resolving disputes was created, with humans playing a central role. When it was over, Ambassador Tyler of the Rithian Assembly approached Nicole in the corridor. "That was well done," the four-armed delegate said. "You handled the council better than most of our veteran diplomats." Nicole smiled slightly. "We had good teachers. You showed us how galactic politics worked. We were paying attention, even when you thought we weren't. I am beginning to realize that." Taylor hesitated. "Can I ask you something? When you left, did you know this would happen? Did you plan for the galaxy to fall apart?" "We planned for you to notice we were gone. What you did with that notice was up to you." Nicole looked out the window at the stars. "We hoped you would learn. We feared you wouldn't. But either way, we weren't going to keep being ignored. And if we hadn't changed, if the council had refused to negotiate, then we would have stayed home, built our own civilization, become whatever we were going to become without you." Nicole shrugged. "Maybe that would have been worse for everyone. Maybe not. But at least we would have been free." Taylor considered this. "Freedom is important to humans. It's the most important thing. We would rather struggle alone than succeed as servants." Nicole turned back to face her. "That's what the council never understood about us. We weren't asking for charity or special treatment. We just wanted to stand on our own feet and be treated like we mattered. That's all anyone really wants." On the docking bay, Sam Cooper finished unloading his cargo. It was grain from the new Austin colony, the first human shipment to the Volari in over a year. Workers carefully transferred the containers, while station officials recorded everything in triplicate. Same old bureaucracy. Lucy Tran observed. Some things never change. Sam watched the Valari workers handle the cargo with obvious care. But some things do. An elderly Valari approached him. The being's smoky form was darker than the younger ones, weathered by age. "Captain Cooper," the Valari said, "I am Trade Minister Selkoth. I wanted to thank you personally for resuming shipments." "Just doing my job." "No, you were doing more than that." Selkoth's form rippled with emotion. "When your ships left, I thought it was a negotiating tactic. I thought you would come crawling back within weeks. I was wrong." The alien lowered his head. "I have been wrong about many things concerning your species. I am trying to do better." Sam studied the alien for a long moment. Then he held out his hand. Selkoth looked at it in confusion. "It's called a handshake," Sam explained. "Humans do it when they're making a fresh start." The trade minister extended something that might have been an arm. The contact was strange human flesh meeting alien smoke, but it worked well enough. "A fresh start," Selkoth repeated. "I would like that very much." In the Great Hall, Nicole Blake finished her first day as humanity's ambassador. She was tired but satisfied. There was still much work to be done. Old habits would be hard to break. Some species would resist change until the end.